know, there's probably more rubbish spoken about what works well in the sand as far as tyres go than any other topic in four-wheel driving. I've heard all sorts of things over the years, but to settle the argument once and for all, we've got Terry Smith along on this trip anyway, and he knows more about four-wheel drive tyres than anyone else in Australia. Come on, Terry, lay it out for us.
Okay, Ruthie, thanks. I brought along Cooper tyres here because Cooper have the biggest range of four-wheel drive tyres, right from the less aggressive highway terrain right through to the most aggressive tyres.
Right.
And in fact, what works the best here is the less aggressive tyres.
On sand?
Yeah, these are H2s or highway terrains, and they've got closed shoulders and round edges and straight treads, and that simply means they'll climb over the sand better than digging down.
Right.
If you want to go to a more aggressive tyre, sure, our all-terrain, and the Cooper's got a round edge again and a straight tread. And there's very deep V in the tyre. And the purpose of that is they get across the top and empty themselves without digging down. Okay. And that's better for sand.
Yep.
The next stage, of course, is another all-terrain, but it's a little bit got sharper edges, offset lugs, and deeper again in the tread. And of course, the purpose of that is to dig down. So that'll get below the surface of it. It still works, but not as good as these two. And of course, right up then to the traction tyres, big offset lugs, really deep and very sharp, and they'll dig down below the surface. So they're the worst, you might say, in the sand.
Oh, okay, well, I've just got to recap here, make sure I got it right. What you're saying is that the highway tyre is best, so this is best almost
to suit these conditions, but if they've already got tyres on, they won't change them.
No.
If you look at the vehicles on this trip, most of us have all got the most aggressive tyres. So we'll talk about pressures later to show how to make these work in these conditions.
Well, you've got very aggressive STTs on your truck, Terry. How do you make these work on sand?
By varying the pressures, Ruthie, that's the answer. Anyone that drives on sand a lot knows that you've really got to drop pressures to be able to get them to work.
You do.
And from the less aggressive to the most aggressive tyres, the difference is pressure will make the difference. Maybe 3 or 4 pound more of a drop in this tyre than a highway terrain will simply do the same job in the sand.
So the more vicious the tyre is, the sharper the cuts, the less pressure.
That's
sand.
True. That's
okay.
True. And the more careful you've got to be as well if you're going to get those pressures down.
Well, you know, this is funny, isn't it? Because I've heard a lot of our readers tell us that they've had varying advice from their tyre dealers, you know, as to how far they can drop their pressure. And from what I understand, a lot of tyre dealers out there don't like people to drop pressures. What's going on there?
Ruthie, the reason is everyone's worried about damage to the tyres.
Yeah.
Cooper Tyres put out a tyre guide now for pressures. It's actually a tyre pressure guide showing you the different pressures for different terrain. And in fact, in sand, they're showing a range here of 18 to 26 psi. Now, the reason the range is so big simply because vehicles vary, tyre constructions vary, and weights in vehicle. So you've really got to know what your starting pressure is, and then the guide will tell you what sort of variances is for different conditions. So this is probably the best thing to get. Get your starting pressure from your tyre dealer on the road, and then look at the guide on the variance you should have.
And work out the variance on that. What happens if you get it severely wrong, Terry?
Oh, terrible. Can I show you an example?
Yes, please. I'd like to see that, actually. That'd be good.
Well, this was a person that left their pressures down too long, John.
Oh, okay.
And simply what happens if you actually leave your pressures down and get back on the blacktop and you're driving, the tyres build up in heat.
Yep.
That's why tyre dealers don't want to recommend you dropping them, but we know you have to get through this territory sometimes.
Sure.
But there's 3 stages basically, and if I show you, have a look at this. First of all, inside the tyre, and you can't see it, the heat actually disintegrates the rubber inside and falls away from the cords.
Yeah, it just looks like it's burnt, doesn't it?
Yep. Yeah. And the second stage is this one here. Now, it starts to buckle on the outside, but it doesn't look that bad, does it?
No.
But look inside. You'll notice the cords have actually come right out of the tyre. And again, you can't see it.
No, it's shredded right away, but you wouldn't know, would you, really?
And when you do know about it is this third stage when suddenly there's an explosion and the heat actually disintegrates right through to the outside and the rubber falls off and the cords stick out. And you either have an accident or simply a flat tyre somewhere where you don't need it.
And that can happen to any tyre, obviously. It's truth.
And Ruthie, that's why make sure you get one of these tyre guides, because we warn in there and we explain what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, that's really good advice, folks. And I'm saying this for a lot of my mates out there. I know you're a bit lazy when you're coming home for a fishing trip or something like that, but look, as soon as you get off the beach, tyre pressure's up. Otherwise you could be cooking them, you'd never know, would you?
That's right.
Thanks, Terry.